Tom Luginbill joins us now on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. What is up, Lugs? How are you?
I'm doing good, guys. How are you doing this morning?
Doing well from the Luginbill wine cellar there in Charlotte.
This right here, this is a vintage 2017 Dollar General, and this is a vintage 2014 Walmart. So we're really classing it up over here.
That's a good look, though. I like it.
But I do see one bottle is missing. So congratulations on a good night last night.
Night.
Let's start with the Auburn situation, and not the behind the scenes, what's going on there, but you look at recruiting and things like that. How does this affect it? I mean, this seems like blood in the water for any coach recruiting against Auburn.
Oh, it absolutely is. And, when you're going forward and, you're trying to build a program, and you have all of this, as Nick Saban would call it, clutter surrounding the program. I've always felt so strongly that, there's two things that prospects in recruiting are going to shy away from, and that's instability and uncertainty. And right now it looks like, Auburn is dealing with both of those. So as we hit the 2023 class recruiting cycle, the program's in their winter conditioning program before we get into spring ball. It's just not the way you want to start off the cycle, because it just puts you behind. You don't, as an assistant coach, and you don't have any answers. And if you don't have any answers, somebody's going to create answers for them. False, right, wrong, or indifferent. That when you say the chums in the water, the sharks are circling, there's no doubt about it.
Hey, what do you typically read into when you see so much division? When you've got some team leaders saying, we love Bryan Harsin, he's our guy, and then you've got other guys going into the portal and going out publicly and saying, quote, he treated us like dogs. What side do you typically go to on that?
I've gotten to know Bryan Harsin over the years. Obviously would know him in a different light, a different perspective. I do think he's extremely demanding. He's extremely detail oriented. To answer the question, I think you have to look at the leadership or lack of leadership on that team. Who are the guys that are in the transfer portal that are pointing fingers, that are making the statements? What type of guys were they when they were within the program? And I think it's also concerning, too, that anytime you have an administrative approach to talking with players, that never bodes well for the coaching staff. And I don't think that's the way you want this thing to go down. I just think, too, we are in a little bit of we're not in a little bit. We are in a full-blown era now where you can't coach guys the way you used to. You can't be maybe as hard and demanding and have the type of response and reaction that I guess you could say when we all grew up was just the natural course of responding to criticism, responding to leadership, responding to authority. It's a different animal out there right now with today's 18 to 22-year-old, and maybe that's something for Bryan Harsin that he's having a hard time adjusting with if any of the speculation and the allegations come to fruition and end up being fairly accurate.
Tom Luginbill's with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. Tom, as we move to other things now, Arch Manning's recruitment will be a storyline that everyone's covering all the way, and there were reports over the weekend he drops Clemson off of his list of schools he's considering. I guess you got to pare it down at some point. You can always add them back. But does that surprise you a little bit? Because to me, the Mannings would like the Dabo Swinney way of approaching football. But off the list is Clemson right now.
Yeah, and you're right. I think a lot of this just has to do with, checking the boxes, making your pros and cons lists, and, who makes the cut. And I don't think it's necessarily a reflection of Clemson. And also, it also happens to be the school that's furthest away from the state of Louisiana as far as, proximity. And I do think that there's a bit of an SEC tie to all of this. I really believe that. And I think because of that, and this isn't, again, to take away from Clemson, but if you look at the conference affiliation, I think it's got to play a role. And I'd like to believe, and, following him and his recruitment and him as a player and the family, I'd really like to believe that their number one priority is playing for a championship. And that being something that's very, very important, because it's not just all going to be about Arch Manning. Now, the storylines will be about Arch Manning, but I think they're smart enough to realize that we got to make sure that we're checking all the boxes so that we're in a position where we can maximize Arch's ability level by ensuring that the culture and the environment around him is as strong as it can possibly be.
There are reports that Steve Sarkisian is hiring David Cutcliffe in an off-the-field role. Why would Steve Sarkisian want David Cutcliffe, Luginbill? What would the possible connection be there?
Hey, do what you got to do, right?
Yeah.
In recruiting, a lot of it is finding out who the decision maker is, right? So if David Cutcliffe and his relationship with the Manning family, which goes, back to the early 90s, becomes a part of the decision factor, then it makes total sense if you're Steve Sarkisian to go down that route.
Now, the week started in Mobile for Kenny Pickett. He didn't want to measure his hands, small hands, and the week ended with a win, and he only played the first quarter, but he was really good. I was a big fan. I thought he was tremendous this year. What do you read into the small hands? How do you think he translates to the next level?
Well, I think that the question comes in regards to cold weather. He did play in a lot of cold weather games. He did play in Pittsburgh, did not appear to have any issues. I got to see him twice in person over the last couple of years. I thought he was nothing short of sensational this season. And I guarantee you throughout the week down there in Mobile, he would have won the interview process. He's a high IQ guy that's personable, highly competitive temperament. I wouldn't make too much of the hand size thing. I really wouldn't. If he'd been playing in a warm weather climate a lot and had not played in many cold weather games, then I think it becomes a little bit more of a legitimate concern. But for now, I think what he probably proved throughout the week, as well as throughout deciding to come back and play this past fall, is going to be more than enough of a sample size to overcome not getting his hand measured.
Okay, Josh Gaddis to Miami. You got to like that if you're Mario Cristobal, right? I mean, the guy just won the Broyles Award. What's Miami getting in Josh Gaddis?
I think they're getting an innovator, a guy that relates to the players extremely well. I think he's got a great connection with his athletes and a buy-in and the approach of what they're trying to do. But really the coaching and the interaction between him and players, I think, is very, very strong. And, Miami, obviously, Rhett Lashley had done a wonderful job there and particularly handled the transition to Tyler Van Dyke really well, and they made some tweaks to the offense. So there's a lot of weapons. They know they're going to have some good players there, and now they're going to probably become even more wide open with what they do. And to give Mario Cristobal credit, this is why you don't just rush to hire somebody. You take your time, you be patient, you keep poking and prodding, see how the thing plays out, and then next thing you know, maybe some good things will happen. I think it's kind of a nice reflection of the process by which he's gone about it.
Do you love good movie soundtracks? Like, do you have one that pops to mind? You're such a movie guy. Do you like soundtracks that do you end up listening to them like when you're skiing or studying film or anything?
I don't. I'll tell you, if you told me that, okay, the soundtrack for Footloose in 1984 is awesome, I would agree with you, but I wouldn't go listen to it. Where I really like, this is going to sound crazy, I love the instrumental stuff. If you took John Williams and put Raiders of the Lost Ark, Star Wars, Superman, all those great pieces of music that he put together, you could put that on a loop for me and I'd listen to that all day long.
One of the most random concerts I ever attended, and this is so true, it was down at Boutwell Auditorium here in town, Lugs. The London Philharmonic Orchestra came to Birmingham and played John Williams hits.
Was it awesome?
Oh, it was phenomenal. I mean, I know that sounds weird, but it was an incredible concert. Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff, man. There's no question about it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, and this is just so weird, the most moving moment of it is, and I don't know the backstory, but the most moving moment of it is the person playing the violin solo from Schindler's List got choked up.
Oh.
And you could hear them sniffing, like fighting back the tears while they're playing the violin solo. It was incredible. Incredible.
Yeah.
How did Jaws play out?
I don't remember that as much. I remember Indiana Jones and Star Wars more than anything.
Yeah.
But it was such a good concert, though. No joke.
That shows you the difference in mine and Brown's upbringing. He's being taken to the London's Philharmonic. How do you say it?
You can't even say it.
Yeah.
Let's go to it.
I got to go to the Alabaster feed store to hear Phil on the harmonica.
Alabaster feed store.
Jeez. All right, he is ESPN's Tom Luginbill. Follow him on Twitter at Tom Luginbill. Thank you for the time, Luke. Have a great week.
You too, guys. Have a great week.
All right, buddy. Luginbill with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline.